Today we have lecture about ICC, International Criminal Court. I'm not going to say more about this court, but Nixon is here just to explain what was the purpose of International Criminal Court, what was the idea behind it. Was it just for Africans or the other countries, like European guys who just make mistakes? So I will just welcome Nixon and do at first. Presentera.
Okay, thank you. As we're going to make this presentation, I'm not going to be subjective on the side of the ICC or on behalf of the African people or the African continent. I'm just going to be objective on the reality of the ICC. So the rest of the things, if you want to know about how it is debated between African leaders and the continent in general, we can take that in discussion and see the impact of the ICC. But generally, I'm going to give the overview of how it was formed, why it was formed, and what was the motives behind it, and then we can see if it was really targeting Africa. As all of you know, the ICC was officially established in 2003, which is not a very old as you know. And it has a big number of people actually being employed. That's like 750 staff that is currently being employed by the ICC. But the initial beginning of its formation was actually in 2002, when this major group of NGOs and some European experts and some government countries also, they met in Rome and decided that something should be brought up that would make a check and balance on some people that are committing crimes. That was their objective. But majorly it was the NGOs that started the idea. And when this idea came up actually, and this is the funny thing that many people, especially from Africa, also complain. Majority of the people who welcomed the idea of the ICC were Africans. They were the first to start that this is a good idea because the NGOs presented the cases, and most of these NGOs have been operating in the continent. So all the African countries say, yeah, it's a good idea, it should go ahead, and they were happy about it. So that was the reason that they want to make ICC. It's about genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and then crimes of aggression. And clearly everybody was convinced that that was a good idea. It was, as I said earlier, it was in Rome. And then these NGOs actually started the idea in 98. But it took them long to go from one African country to another, including consultation with European countries, until it went to the Security Council, the UN. And they voted for it actually. So 21 countries abstained that they are not voting when they saw the ideas of how it was implemented. 7 of them voted against. As you can see there, Iraq, Israel, Libya, China, Qatar, USA, and Yemen. Those are the only countries that rejected the idea completely. And they voted against it. As you can see, the only African country there was Libya. But no any other African country said no. So after the voting, they got 60 countries that ratified the idea. And then it became legal. The same countries that also voted for it, especially African countries, they signed. But apart from the NGOs also, there are 3 important countries that were behind the idea also. And that is France, Spain, and Britain. So they are the major players that are also working together with the NGOs to make sure that the ICC is formed immediately. For them, they say they are protecting vulnerable people around the globe. They don't mention it was Africa only. So, but then, after its formation, many people started questioning it also. They thought there are a lot of biases and flaws. And then one of course, the biasness people were wondering is like, if there are 189 countries in the UN that were voting, not even half of it voted for the idea. So that means they wouldn't have moved it if it was only 60 countries out of 189. So obviously many people know that this was just rushed in by the NGOs and it wouldn't play any role at all. Second, also it is, since it was recognized as an international court, during that time nobody even knows about it, especially if you go to individual countries. Not only poor countries, even if you come to advanced countries like Sweden during that time, or you go to other European countries, they even didn't know anything about the ICC, what it was all about. Because those things have been in Rome and it was not passed in parliaments, people are not educated. You don't find any document in public that talks about the ICC. And actually one of the funny things I noticed about ICC is in Sudan itself, many people didn't know what ICC was for, but they said we heard about ICC. But it became very popular in Sudan when they want to arrest Bashir. And when people get angry, maybe in bus stations, trains are delayed, or there's some minor issues, then there's people will scream like, where is this Okambo? He should come back, and you know. And when people ask you, what is Okambo? Then you say, oh, he's supposed to arrest our president because we are facing a lot of problems. But what is ICC? We don't know ICC. So generally, ICC was not known internationally within the citizens. In a democratic society, it was not told how it was supposed to work. And then another flaw also that makes the ICC very negative is that Article 13B and 16 of the ICC grant special prosecution right to refer or defer an ICC investigation to the UN Security Council or the 5 permanent members. So many people start questioning how did it move that from International Criminal Court that is going to be independent and is going to investigate the wrong issues to be linked with the UN Security Council. Because the UN Security Council have certain things that you can't actually debate with them. And that was the reason they knew that if something wrong was got out of the investigation they carry out, they would link it to the Security Council, whereby nobody can question it. And then, from our view, when we are doing the investigation of this research, I would give an example that when Kosovo's resolution was passed, because it went to 3 countries, it was first in Spain, and then the second one was in Germany, and then finally it was ratified in the United States. But I attended the one in Germany, and one of the lawyers actually who was standing for Kosovo told me that she was running a case in Germany, and because it was one gentleman from Turkish origin but born in Germany, and that he was suspected of terrorism or terror attack or something like that. But then there was a new rule that comes from the European Union and many European countries that if you're suspected of terrorism and all these things, your assets and travel should be frozen. he shouldn't travel until the investigations are found out. So this guy got his assets all frozen. He was a businessman. He couldn't travel. He can't withdraw money from his bank. And then when he asked it, they told him, if you want to go to court, you can go to court, but you can only withdraw minimal amount equivalent to what a citizen of the country can survive with. He got this lady who is a lawyer, and then the lady sued the German government. When she sued the German government, because she was winning the case, the German government knew that they were going to lose, and they were going to pay maybe more than that. They decided that, well, we are not acting on our own, we are acting under the rules of the European Union. So if you want, you can sue European Union. So this lady decided to sue the European Union on behalf of this guy. And in the European court also, she was winning the case. And when the European Union knew that, they know that it is going to be a big problem, not only to Germany, but to the whole EU. So they say they were actually acting under the UN Security Council. So the lady said, okay, if this is the case, then I'm going to sue the Security Council. But actually when she proceeded, it was found out that the UN Security Council, there is no jurisdiction that you can sue them. So this guy is stuck in Germany. He has nothing to do, and the lawyer can't do anything because of those rules that the immunity that the Security Council have put in themselves. So right now, this ICC decided to take the same steps, that in case anybody claims that, especially if you say Charles Taylor was wrongly accused, and you want to sue the ICC with your external lawyers, they will definitely end up referring you to the UN Security Council. So this is the reason why many people thought, how did the UN Security Council come in? But that is the objective for them, to take and cover that they are acting on the behalf of the Security Council. Also other things regarding the interference, and as you see from the reference why they took to the Security Council, and actually in those 5, 6, 3 of them are not members of the Security Council. So, I mean of the ICC. So how do you take cases that the ICC should refer to the Security Council, yet the USA, which is there, member, Russia is there, and China is there, they didn't ratify anything. They didn't recognize the ICC. So that means only 2 people in the Security Council can act. And that is some of the negative flaws of the ICC. So this is another flaw also. It has reached the extent that the Security Council now decide when a case is to be carried out, whether it's to be delayed or it has to be debated. So it is completely a bias that is not the ICC acting on itself. Another problem, that if this ICC was really intended to look for justice globally, they never included weapons of mass destruction in their cases. Because they know many countries, top big countries also have nuclear weapons, and then they completely, and then India also said, well, if the weapons of mass destruction are not included, then we are not joining. And that was the reason why India did not join the ICC. So, regardless of those flaws, those are the major things. Many people come to know that actually it was a political influence, majorly from these big countries that are targeting some small countries that don't have powers. And you can see clearly that Ocampo was forced to speed up the arrest of Bashir of Sudan, because he was given a time to investigate the case, but the investigation didn't go long. Not as you can see, even the one of Kenya at least have certain steps of investigation, follow up, people could fly into the country to find the truth. But with Sudan, nothing was done like that. They just directly because the NGO said that he should be just put into a list of arrest. So for us to look at it as also having some bias and flaws, if we really see that it's targeting crimes around the world, then people still ask, what about in Iraq, the human rights abuses, Afghanistan, and then Gaza? Why is ICC not making investigation in those countries, or passing a warrant of arrest for the people who are concerned in these countries? Why USA is not there? Actually, it came in a time when it was Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton openly said they are not ready to sign for ICC, and they will not be members of it. Their reason is that the court lacked checks and balances on the powers of the ICC prosecutors and the judges. And it was true, because when you look at the arrangement of the judges, most of them actually have not sat in a court to judge cases. So USA started the whole process. They knew what was going on and how it was made in Rome, which kind of people are meeting there. And they, of course, even if they are giving these issues, the USA knows that they have a problem also of crimes around the world. So, but these are the reasons they are giving that they will not be part of it. Also, they say the absence of juries. They think that not enough judges that watches the cases that are there. And of course, if you go right now to ICC and cases has been passed, most of them sit there and listen. They are not experts on laws, international laws or prosecution. So the United States decided that no, this was not the right institution for them to join. Well, despite the fact that this is one of the most funny things, that the USA decided not to be part of the ICC, but most of the cases that are now taking place in Africa, they are the one pushing for it. And they are not part of it, they rejected it and they dismiss it as a biased institution, but they are giving a lot of money for any case right now in Africa. Even the case of the Kenyan case right now, America was completely behind it. And Obama decided not to go to Kenya because of that the Kenyans are not cooperating with the ICC. So the question is, if you rejected this institution, why are you supporting it also to be arresting people in the country? Because their target was Bashir and Gaddafi during that time. And that's why they put in a lot of money to support the ICC. This is also part of the biggest problem in the ICC. That's the appointment of the judges. So most of the judges who are sent to ICC, they're like retired people, but with good background from their countries. Some are just politicians who have nothing to do now, because others were diplomats before, some from the government policies, and some the countries, like I mentioned from the beginning, the Britons and all, because they put in a lot of money, so they know to select from their countries who is to go there. So they are not really professional lawyers that are appointed to prosecute the cases that are in the court. Political parties from different countries also select who they think is good. To give an example, right now, if the government in Sweden feel like there's a very important person but can't have any position but is good in their political party, you can be sent there, which is unprofessional, because democratically they don't even take the person to the parliament to be checked if he is fit for that position. They don't do that. They just appoint you because the party in power think that it's the right thing to do. Of course, geographical spread is like most of them are from Europe mostly, who dominated the place, and North America. And they just dump there. Most of them admit that they don't have experience in law at all. And then one good example is one lady, I met her actually personally. She's called Carla Di Ponte. She was from the Swiss attorney. this lady honestly sits there. She said she even had no interest in the cases discussed, but she was appointed to be there. And she's most of the time when a case is over, she's always with the journalists, and her names are almost all over all the time. But when journalists put her for questioning, she doesn't answer questions about the court. And then one day she admitted that she has no experience on what is going on about those cases. Yet she was one of the top judges. Japan also nominated one professor, and then this was one of the funny things about this lady. She was the Japanese ambassador to Norway, because Japan funds gives a lot of money to ICC, so they decided to appoint her to go there too. Yet she had no experience completely of law, and she said openly that she was in foreign missions, she's dealing with foreign policies, and she was appointed by her country to go there, and then she has no choice but to be there. So you wonder how these kind of people make judgment of cases. So the idea of course, EU behind it, that one is well known. Most people know that you have been the strongest supporter of the ICC since its beginning. And one of the members of the European Union admitted that they put a lot of effort, and they have been working on that to make sure that it is established. Financially, EU dominates the cases of the ICC. As you can see, like 75.6% of the resources come from EU. And of course, Japan, that's why they send there is kind of the other lady who's not even law experienced person. So this is the recent financial aid that the European Union put to ICC, and it's quite a lot of money. So with such kind of money, where do you expect to employ the people? Definitely get it from your country. So now the problem to us is that the African dilemma. Why are they complaining right now? Was it really, is the ICC targeting them? They think that this is right now the problem. For them, all the cases now, of course, you can see openly that out of the 7, since the beginning, when the cases started, the first 7 of them were all from African countries. So, and then there were questions whether, of course, if they bias the whole institution, what about the judges? And one of the judges said that they regret actually about the selections of the cases, and they didn't know that they would start picking on African countries. And some of them were pulling out that no, it was not me who decided, but we sat and we looked at the strongest cases, but they said they really regret some of the cases they took from the beginning. So there was no balance, it's only from one continent. Yeah, and then of course, 3 of the cases from investigation, Africans themselves referred themselves to the ICC, with the exception of 2 that the Security Council referred. And as I mentioned earlier, America's interest there was Libya and Gaddafi and Bashir about the Darfur issue. But the rest 3 African countries referred themselves. The good example is the DRC, Benin, and Tanzania. They voted in favor of the UN Security Council for the referral of Darfur. They said it should go to the ICC. So this also brings the question of why are they now complaining? Because the same DRC and Tanzania in this recent conference in the African Union, they also said that they have in the referral of the Darfur of Bashir, they are the one who actually, the 3 African countries who spoke strongly that they should go. South Africa, Gabon, and Nigeria also voted for Libya's issue. And And recently, Nigeria also is complaining about the ICC. Ivory Coast, they accepted by themselves, of course, and of course for the Ivory Coast, they know that the president was taking his own cover because he think he want to come to power and then the sentence of Babu, but they cooperated with the ICC. Otherwise, they would have tried him at home. Like right now, even if Libya is referred, they refuse to hand over Gaddafi's son because they said they have the capacity to deal with it themselves. Kenya, the former President Kibaki and then the Prime Minister of India also referred for the investigation of the current sitting president in Kenya. So you can see that most of the cases actually is self-referral. They refer themselves to the ICC, but now they're really complaining about it. Even the Mali referral also. ECOWAS supported it. But the first letter that went to African Union, was it 2 weeks ago, for the rejection of ICC, it is ECOWAS who drafted the letter that they don't want ICC to interfere in the African countries. Some people question like that was not fight. It was last year you accepted it. So in summary, for me, I would argue that the investigations in Africa are distributed by the problems that we see, which is not really something that we can hide, that no crimes have happened. But the reality is, you can see that there were victims that needed justice, which justice, the African countries or the African Union, if it was capable, they would have sorted it themselves. Like you can see 2.5 million victims in Darfur, 2 million in Congo, 1.3 in Uganda. So all these are crimes that needed to be dealt with. But the problem is most of the African countries never dealt with the cases severely, and some Africans who are not in the government, they think that actually the coming of the ICC would have solved out the problem that they never had before. So this is the reaction of the African leaders and some scholars, of course, who are against it. Richard Fallon is one of the professors in the United States. He's the first guy who was really against the ICC case. He was an American by himself, but he said there is complete discrimination against Africa in the case of the ICC. And he has written, I think, several letters for the ICC to review some of the conditions they put for arrest of African leaders. He also talked on terms of sovereign, and he thinks that in the Western world you can't just interfere with countries like that, but ICC is quick in entering in African affairs without any respect of international law, which of course everybody understands about it. But then the question is, where were they doing it from the first beginning? This is the recent reaction from the African Union. They claim bias, and of course they said, okay, if it is us, why not Argentina, why not Myanmar, why not Iraq, and so it's only about us. So that is the OTP, that is the office of the prosecutor. That's when they accusing Bensouda's office. And then one guy also from Professor Mondani, is a Uganda. He also felt that the cases were just selected on the basis of American interest. Because there are so many cases that are more than that. But actually they got his message, but what they replied is they're just checking cases that happened after 2006. So if anything happened before that, they said they are not concerned about it. I mean, a crime is a crime. If you're investigating crime, then you wouldn't just say, I will start from today, but not yet started. And Kagame also was very bitter about it of recent, and for me I can imagine what happened with him and Museveni, because there are rumors that they have been linked out for the Congo issue, that he is linked inside, yet he was, from the beginning he accepted the court, but now he's against it also. But the rumors are that his name is in the list of those who committed the crimes in Congo. And same to Museveni, they also think that for him, he really went very wildly during the inauguration of the Kenyan president, who was wanted in ICC right now. And he called them arrogant and careless, a lot of words. And you can take a video of it in YouTube and find when he was really very angry about it. But then Museveni was the first person to accept the ICC, because he think that Kony should be brought to ICC. But now he completely changed his mind. And the same thing also, people say that his name is in the list of crimes in Congo, and then some crimes in Uganda. So now he has completely changed his view. Before they went actually for the African Union discussion, he had already debated the thing in his parliament to decide that how many people want to vote for them to pull out of ICC. So Ugandans have already voted that they are pulling out of ICC. And then he sent a message to different African countries to pass debates in their parliament that they want to pull out, and then they can gather this and they meet in the African Union, and then they agree together that they are pulling out. So now they have decided, and I think they are sending a letter to the Security Council, to the UN Secretary General, that they no longer want it. So this is briefly about the establishment of the ICC and the background of it. And so if we have some questions, we can debate and discuss how it